Have you ever tried taking a shortcut in life? Did it work out for you? This is a story entitled Frozen in Prayer from my book, God's Wake-Up Call by Nancy Hilton. The weather was stormy, and the icy particles licked the windshield as the wipers went back and forth. The sound was in cadence with the radio that was blaring rock music. The driver leaned forward and tried to see a few feet in front of his car, but could not. His friend was singing along with the music and bouncing up and down. "Hey man, this music is great, isn't it?" His friend was high on drugs and had no understanding of the danger of their situation. The driver turned off the radio and the passenger just kept singing and bouncing around until he noticed he had no accompaniment. "Hey man," he said, "why'd you turn off the music?" The driver said, "Look outside, it is solid ice. I must concentrate on driving, and your music and singing are definitely a distraction." The passenger became quiet as he tried to peer outside. "Wow," he said, "look at all that ice." Pretty soon the windshield wipers stopped, for the ice was so thick that the windshield was frozen solid. The driver pulled over to the side and stopped the car. Well, now what? They would have to wait for help. The ice and snow piled up. The sound was muffled and no other cars passed by. He had taken a shortcut and no one knew where they were. His passenger started to come down from his high and began to cry and blame his friend. "Why'd you drive this way? I feel lousy. We need to do something." "What do you suggest?" the driver asked. "Well, I don't know, man, but I feel awful." He got sick, and the stench in the car was terrible. The driver tried to open his door, but it was frozen shut. He pushed his friend into the back seat. "Try the door back there," he said. "If we stay here, we will die." The doors would not budge. They were trapped in ice. The driver had run away from home a year ago and was drifting from one place and job to another. He never called his mom. She always warned him about this and that, but he got tired of listening, so he left. He had better things to do with his life than to be controlled by her silly rules. Well, he sure learned fast that a life without rules and direction can lead you to the shortcuts. This shortcut was obviously the wrong one to take. He looked at his friend, who was shivering and shaking. His lips were blue and icy particles had dried where tears had formed. The driver knew he looked the same. He also knew they would die. As the driver reflected back on his life, he tried to think of good things he did for his parents and others. Unfortunately, he could only remember a few instances. He regretted his choices to live this life without rules. Now it would end so soon. But what could he do? Maybe he could pray. The car was discovered by a police officer the following week. When he pried open the door, he found two young boys. The passenger was frozen with fear upon his face. The driver was frozen in prayer. The policeman shook his head. He was witnessing this more and more. He wished that these kids could learn to lead wholesome lives before it was too late. How sad that these lives had been cut short. As the police lifted the kids out of the car, the sun came out and reflected on their icicle tears. It is my prayer that these stories will challenge you to think about the different aspects of your life. You can find links to these stories in the description. Now, I'm also a watercolor artist and decided that after my miracle, I needed to include Jesus Christ in my paintings. That's why I created my website, hiltonartist.com, so you could actually download any of these watercolors for your personal use for free.